Hello and welcome wherever you're listening to and watching 2020 Coaching Convos with me, Julie Crabb, as usual. You've joined me on the third series. It's still called Passionately Curious. And I've got to admit that I found solo podcasting in series 2 a really lonely old business. So I've reverted back to what I love and value, which is connecting with others. And so I'm back to hosting conversations with guest coaches. And true to the previous series, I'm continuing the pursuit of learning. So it's still passionately curious. And the curiosity for the next 2 weeks is about passions and interests of fellow coaches and what fires them up, what interests them, what they're looking at and exploring and learning. And importantly for me and others listening, what we need to learn from these passions to apply to our own practice. So this week, the first week of Series 3, my guest is someone who describes herself as qualified and accredited bilingual leadership coach. I know that she comes from a village very close to Venice in Italy, and she's got 20 years of experience in the sustainable creative industry as a leader and a mentor. And so welcome to the wholehearted leadership coach, Rebecca Cuberli.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Rebecca. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. I just finished a coaching session with one of my clients, and I'm truly feeling wholehearted. So how you just described me truly describes how I'm feeling now.
That's fantastic. Good stuff. So you really kindly sent me a much longer description than my introduction there to you. And I've already got an initial question about that very first sentence, if I may. So
Yeah.
you said sustainable creative industry, and I know that that can extend to art and architecture and design and hospitality. But can you firstly just give us an idea of the kind of people and companies that you work with?
Yeah, so my previous background in corporate used to be in fashion, and I used to work for a brand that the first sustainable brand, let's say, in luxury fashion, which is Stella McCartney. And obviously that led me to feeling really wholehearted in my work, caring about the planet, the people, and the environment. And that was like a long experience of over 12 years. Then I moved into coaching, and I used to do mentoring as well in my previous role as a leader. But then I chose to leave the corporate and decide to fully dedicate myself to my clients. And so amongst my clients now, I have, as you said, expanded the creativity arena to not just fashion, but to all the types of arts. And this is connecting me to the true meaning of creativity. At the beginning, when I joined the fashion, I really didn't think I was creative at all, but I managed to surround myself with really talented creatives. But then after 12 years, I truly understood that creativity means other things. It's not just being able to sketch, to draw, or to make a masterpiece, but you can really truly be creative by how you come up with solutions, problem solving. It's like the new innovative thinking. So when I collaborate with my clients, I work with architects, I work with leaders that want to take their organization to a different level. They care about their teams and want to find new strategies as well. So enabling them to enhance that creativity and intuition that is within them, let's say. So it's more like a expanded meaning of creativity, and the care about sustainability is always there, and probably has shifted more from a place of an environment sustainability to people sustainability, caring about others. Yeah.
Mm. Do you know what? That first question, it's always, I find fascinating because I'm particularly interested in how people get into coaching and where they come from. And it's always an interesting journey. Okay, so thanks for that, Rebecca. So we've got about 15 minutes to satisfy curiosity about your passions today. And I know you said to me that you're a multi-passionate person, and I
Yeah.
can completely align with that. So you told me you've got three passions that you particularly want to introduce to listeners, and I'll just outline them, but then we can explore what they actually mean and what you want to describe. So the passions you've talked about are wholehearted coaching for leaders and coaches. Sorry, leaders and creatives. Wholehearted being doing something really single-mindedly and pure and resourced by the creativity as you've described.
Mhm.
And then secondly, emotional intelligence for leaders and creatives. And then authenticity in and vulnerability in the roles of leaders and creatives. I wonder, before we go into it, not everybody will understand the term creatives. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I started to unpack it a little bit before, and it's not just so I would call creatives, I would include in creativity and creatives, creative thinkers, creative minds, and anyone that is using um, is bringing innovation. So it's not just doing the same thing all over again. That want to find new ways of approaches, improve themselves. And therefore, yes, I can include architects, chefs, designers, of course. That's the pure sense of creativity. But also, when I came out of my corporate experience, I found myself really creative because I used to do planning and dealing with an organizational side for a lot of people. And you need to be creative in that side because you need to think about plan A, plan B, plan C, and adapting and moving. So it's about being flexible, innovative. It's about self-development as well. So it's not just the pure fine arts, I
Mm,
would say, but it's more like an expanded concept.
mm. That's really interesting. And so, as you were describing who the creative people are, and it's not just people who might describe themselves professionally as in a creative industry, but people who are thinking innovatively or who want to develop their thinking. Is that not all of us? Is that not potentially everybody?
Yeah, exactly. So my niche is quite broad, but I would say that I didn't think I was creative until my very end journey in the corporate because I didn't understand what creativity was, and everyone has their own meaning of creativity. But yes, it is basically what one of my key sentences when what I would like everyone to do in terms of leadership and creativity is lead with your heart, with your intuition, and with your creativity, and tapping into these three areas, then you are allowed to basically be wholehearted because you're tapping into your three main resources.
Mhm,
And therefore, yes, everyone is creative and everyone can tap into their own creativity and intuition.
mm. So, I mean, I've had coaching from quite a number of different coaches with different styles and niches and approaches. And so, what you've said now has made me wonder what happens in your coaching sessions. I can imagine it could be a myriad of things because of the nature of what you're doing, which is kind of sounds like you're, I don't know, helping people tap into their own creativity. So how would a typical coaching session be?
There is no such typical coaching session with me. It comes in flow. But if I were to describe to someone that doesn't know how a coaching program works, usually there is a path that I try to follow, and this is following basic guidelines, which is tapping into your purpose, your values, understanding yourself better, and therefore a understanding your talents and what are you here to do and what are your gifts, and then taking all of these great exploration into a something more tangible. So what you're all of this, and so what. And so a typical coaching session is always client led. So I gently support the clients with provocation as well. And creativity could also tap into humor and positivity usually, but it's always a surprise also for me. So, but we start with a topic. And then we change throughout the topic, of course, throughout the session, because the main obstacle might be something different. And then we tap into creativity to come up with some solutions and a sustainable plan, which can support the person to actually put in place new habits, which create a new identity as well.
Mm. That sounds really, really interesting and an exciting way to approach a conversation. Is it always a conversation, or are there other media involved? I kind of imagine it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So through the reflective practice that I've learned in my latest training, I've learned that I thought I had to write, I had to listen, and those were my senses. And instead, I understood that everyone has their own sensory preferences, and therefore, the tools that I use normally either match what the clients want, or they purposely unmatch just to try to come out from their comfort zone and try to do something different. So I would tap into visualization, touch, sound, body sensory as well. I do outdoor coaching. Um, what do I do? Yeah, we draw as well in the session. So it might be related to art, but it really depends, because if creative is that's their way, I might ask them to kind of do something completely different. So it's putting the client in a gentle, just a little bit outside their comfort zone, and trying something new, basically.
Mm, yeah, fantastic. So I'm going to put myself in a position of potentially being a client of yours then,
Yeah.
Rebecca. And I imagine you have had clients such as this scenario. Maybe somebody comes to you who does want to tap into their creativity, but like you did before you left the corporate world, didn't particularly know what their creative elements were.
Yeah.
How would you approach that? How would you start with that with a client?
I think I would start from tapping into their child mode, or child, like reminiscence of their childhood, because we create our passions and our interests since the age of 5, 6. So I would definitely ask you, what were you passionate about when you were around 6? Of course, if someone has had not a very positive childhood, I would try to find different ways, engaging ways of tapping into different periods of their lives. And therefore, I usually send a pre-coaching questionnaire to find out about how they are and what's their past, to make sure that I am ethical in what I do. But yeah, tapping into your child inside of you, inner child, and also, yeah, asking you basically what you normally do in terms of behaviors that you might not be really conscious about. So I would tap into what you don't know about and bring it to your awareness, and therefore you realize that you have done things more creatively than you thought.
Mm. Just that very question, actually, about what were your passions and interests when you were a child, when when we're at our most playful, brought back immediately some thoughts to me. It's a great question, actually, because it's very firmly embedded in identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And if you were to ask me, my hospitality is one of my backgrounds, and my family used to run an hotel on the seaside next to Venice. And I loved being there and welcoming people, being connecting with diverse people. They were coming, they were going. I was helping them even when I was really small, a child, because my mom used to tell me, "Oh, you need to do a bit of work," even when I was really young. I always loved to making them have the best experience, and I think I brought that into me in coaching as well now.
Hmm.
I I I try to really, I am wholehearted in what I do in the coaching. I was wholehearted back there, and therefore that's my passion. Yes.
Yes. And how do you personally stay wholehearted, Rebecca? Because it's hard to be consistent in with
Full-time
your
job.
full-time job.
Um, so how do I stay wholehearted? I stay wholehearted by definitely be authentic and recognize all the parts of me, the positive ones, the ones that need a little bit of improvement. Accepting all of this allows me to truly be inspired by something and strictly go into it with all my heart. And that's what drives my determination. I'm a very determined person as well. And I put all my heart if I find that there is a purpose and a sense. So to stay wholehearted throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout qualifications, work, what I would suggest and what I do is reminding myself always about my values, my why, my purpose, and finding that courage within me to be vulnerable and to accept also that some things might not work and I should kind of step back from it, because being wholehearted also sometimes drives you to things that you kind of need to stop. And so recognizing also and pausing and reflecting and say, okay, where am I heading to? Is this going in the direction that I want or not? And being able to recognize that as well.
Mm. Do you know that so resonates with me because one of my qualities and values is also determination, but I find it can quite readily slip into almost like a single-minded, a bloody mindedness, like I will do this and I'll only do it this way, when in fact sometimes, like you suggested, you have to step back and think,
Yeah.
there are other ways to do this. It doesn't have to be this way. I can still be determined to achieve, but perhaps, through a different route. Yeah. Mm, fantastic. Okay. So, I think we're coming towards the end of our time on the podcast then, Rebecca. So I want to ask you just a few quick fire questions, if I may, which I'd be grateful if you could just give some really brief answers to. So, um, what particular success have you had in relation to your passions with your coaching?
In relation to my passions for my coaching, well, the first success I would say it's the second qualification I've got, which is the level 7. It has been a journey for me of like letting go of perfectionism, and I have been all-hearted, but the right intensity. And so, as you were saying, that determination allowed me to carry on, but also I also stepped back every now and then and thought, okay, what am I doing to myself? Can I just live for a second and pause, reflect, and come back to it? Or am I just destroying myself to just gain the qualification on time, or to have the best graduatory at the end? So I think that's the qualification was important, as well as in my current coaching with my clients. I think it's when you approach the end of the journey and they thank you from their hearts, that's invaluable. That's even more valuable of the money that they pay you, and knowing that you help them to change something in their lives. It's, yeah, I can't even describe it.
I know exactly where you are, and I'm sure lots of coaches listening will understand it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking of coaches listening and watching, what one thing would you want the coaches to take away about your passion?
Um, so I would say being all-hearted is feels it's fulfillment basically. And so I know that every one of us wants to help others, and being all-hearted can drive you to help more than you need to. And so just probably be mindful of being too much all-hearted with clients and making sure that you keep some boundaries, but also try to give as much as of you as possible, because it's from a way, of course, coaches don't direct, don't influence, etc., etc., but people come to you because they want you. So being wholehearted, it means bring everything of you into the coaching session. Yes.
Brilliant. And Rebecca, for people who want to know more about your passions and want to get to know more about you, how can they find you?
I am on LinkedIn as Rebecca Cuberli. I am on Instagram as Rebecca Cuberli Coach, and I'm currently working on my website, which is going to be ready, I suppose, in a couple of weeks. So by end of October, and it's going to be RebeccaCuberli.com. Easy and straightforward.
Perfect. A huge thanks to you, Rebecca, for being the very first guest on this series, Series 3 of Coaching 2020 Coaching Convos with me, Julie Crabb, in a fortnight's time. And I realised actually only recently, talking to someone across the pond, that fortnight is a curiously British term. So I'm going to say in 2 weeks' time, my second guest will be Katie Groombridge. If you enjoyed this episode, please share and subscribe to it and tell me what you want to hear more about in 2020 Coaching Convos with me, Julie Crabb. Till next time.